Tired of dropping your phone or struggling to prop it up? Meet the PopSockets phone grip with expanding kickstand in black, your new must-have accessory. Don't miss out. Grab yours today. Click the link in the video description to shop now on Amazon.
This is war, say Spanish anti-tourist campaigners as they prepare for summer carnage and call for flight price hikes. Top anti-tourist zealots have waged a war against tourists as they prepare to launch massive protests to stop mass tourism in Spain. Leading campaigners have ordered Brit tourists not to come to Spain and warn travelers heading to the sunny holiday hotspots to stay at home instead. They have long called for measures against mass tourism after feeling pushed out by low-quality tourists. And they are concerned about overcrowding and the preservation of their beaches and beauty spots and resource allocation. Several leading groups of protesters came together and issued a letter to the people visiting Mallorca and other popular tourist spots in Spain. The letter read, "Enough, stay home, we do not need more tourists. In fact, you are the source of our problem. Do not come." Jona Maria Estrany Vallespir, a leading member of an organization called SOS Residents which co-wrote the letter, said, "This is like a war." Speaking to The Telegraph, the fuming anti-tourism campaigner said, "We wanted to open the consciousness of tourists. We ask them not to come because we cannot trust our politicians. We are trying to be polite, not aggressive, but we thought we had to say what we think. Some people, I'm sure, won't come, but it's not going to make a difference." In the letter, the campaigners claimed that the greed and avarice of hoteliers, politicians, real estate investors, and parasites of all kinds have led to such a poor situation. The letter read, "The local population is angry, and we are no longer hospitable because the land we love is being destroyed, and many residents are having to emigrate. But the tourism industry, which rakes in billions across the globe every year, is responsible for keeping many of the Spanish towns and villages afloat." With the summer holiday season fast approaching, anti-tourism protesters are expected to take over the streets across Spain, as they did last year. Jona Maria also called for flight price hikes, which she believes would help cut the influx of tourists. Plans are also to put a cap on the number of tourists arriving in the country and limit accommodations available for foreigners. Last year, raging protesters banded together to harass tourists and turn their summer breaks into misery. And this year, the raging zealots have promised to intensify the intimidation. Spanish party Isle Ibiza saw the first signs of action last month when access to a popular viewing point was blocked with boulders. Thousands flocked to gaze at rocky Is Vedra at sunset, but the site's owners say they are sick of being invaded. Shocking video footage posted online appeared to show vandals pouring flammable liquid on the ground, and then setting fire to around 20 rental vehicles in the southern Tenerife resort of Costa Adeje. They put up a sign which reads, "Private property, restricted access." Pierre Joan is the spokesperson and organizer for many's Turisme Mais Vida, meaning, less tourism, more life. He told the Mirror, "We hope to do the same and occupy the beaches in places that have a mass of tourists." A wave of anti-tourism protests erupted across multiple Spanish holiday hotspots as locals called for an end to low-quality tourism. Residents complain of shameful acts by tourists, such as the display of nudity and frequent violent brawls after getting drunk. Locals say they cannot afford to buy a home and blame the government for allowing holiday rentals and accommodation construction to drive up housing costs. Last year, demonstrators flocked to Majorcan beaches to display locals' discontent with holidaymakers and mass tourism. They were seen huddled together at the coastal resort of Colonia de Sant Jordi, east of the island's capital, Palma. In a different protest, Mallorca's angry anti-tourist locals put up fake beach closure signs in a new bid to hold back holidaymakers. The fed-up residents put up red tape and signs at several coves saying "beach closed." During protests, hateful graffiti urging locals to kill a tourist emerged on a wall in Mallorca. Politicians in the Spanish holiday island condemned the bitter act by anti-tourist vandals, calling the behavior totally unjustified. Hostile messages against foreigners and tourists written on public walls have been on the rise, sparking fears that anti-tourist movements could become more hateful. Anti-tourist fanatics in Majorca mocked Brit holidaymakers over the Euro's defeat during the hate-filled protest. They carried placards showing Man City and England defender Kyle Walker and the words, "The only thing coming home is you." More than 10,000 protesters, packing into the capital Palma, complained about hard-drinking revelers and soaring rents. Banners demanded, "Take back your drunks, give back our homes, and your paradise our nightmare." Meanwhile, anti-tourist zealots chillingly warned of a summer of surprise actions as they prepared to launch protests in Ibiza. Protesters said many demonstrations and mass campaigns will be carried out without warning, something that could spark chaos in the Spanish holiday hotspot. The mainland Spanish city of Barcelona was hit by rallies too, with tourists being sprayed with water pistols. A wave of anti-tourist measures are being implemented across Europe to curb mass tourism in popular holiday hotspots. Overcrowding has become the main problem in many sunny destinations, with authorities trying to find a solution to keep tourists and locals happy. Officials have attempted to reduce the impact of holidaymakers by implementing additional taxes on tourists or banning new hotels. Earlier this year, Venice became the first city in the world to charge an entry fee for holidaymakers after it started charging day trippers €5, £4.30, if visiting the historical Italian center. It was followed by an area in Barcelona, which resorted to removing a well-used bus route from Apple and Google Maps to stop crowds of tourists from using the bus. Meanwhile, San Sebastián in the north of Spain limited the maximum number of people on guided visits to 25 to avoid congestion, noise, nuisance, and overcrowding. The city has already banned the construction of new hotels. The Spanish government has allowed restaurants to charge customers more for sitting in the shade in Andalusia. Benidorm has introduced time restrictions, as swimming in the sea between midnight and 7 a.m. could cost a whopping £1,000. The Canary Islands are also considering adopting measures to regulate the number of visitors and charge tourists a daily tax. Greece has already enforced a tourist tax during the high season from March to October, with visitors expected to pay from €1.86 to €4 £3.45 per night, depending on the booked accommodation. Officials in Santiago de Compostela in Galicia want to introduce a fee for travelers to remind people to be courteous during their trips.